You might have used to think that feminism was all about equality and giving women the choice to decide for themselves what they want to do with their life. This is true for women that want to be girl bosses, divorce their husbands, or murder their children, but as soon as they want to live a traditional life, oh my, that's
fascism.
Lately, I've been seeing this thing pop up on social media.
We are going to talk about how you can become a traditional wife.
How I went from a raging, free-the-nipple feminist
to becoming a traditional feminine woman.
I guess we are about to learn why being traditional is bad. Alright, go on.
The ways that I live traditionally in our modern world.
I don't understand. What's the point of, arguing with him?
Immaculately made-up women gazing wide-eyed into their phones, singing the praises of being a tradwife or traditional wife. I'll let her explain.
If you are not familiar with the term tradwife, it is a woman who chooses to live a more traditional life with ultra-traditional gender roles. So the man goes outside the house, works, provides for the family. The woman stays home and she's the homemaker. She takes care of the home and the children if there are any.
Thanks for that. Though the idea of women being confined to the home while men do things like go outside and work isn't exactly new, the image of 1950s suburban domesticity has been given a new lease of life by the gals on TikTok.
Why is there so much condescension in the way she says, go outside and work? Is working somehow bad? Or is she insinuating that men going to work is not pulling their weight in the relationship? I guess we'll see. Go on.
Can you imagine me, the wife of that boorish, brainless madame?
Some younger millennials and zoomers have decided to embrace living la vida casserole, dedicating themselves to cooking, cleaning and child rearing while their husbands or boyfriends, chop firewood or go to their job in human resources.
Again, why so much condescension? Is chopping firewood bad? She purposefully says human resources because that job has a reputation for being easy, basically to put down men and insinuate that they don't do any actual work. Turns out, this falls completely flat because women are the vast majority of people who work in human resources. You don't even need a statistic for this, it's common sense, but here you go anyways. Here we have a statistic from Zippia, which is a job recruitment company, saying that 70.3% of human resource managers are women, while 29.7% are men. 2018 Workplace Diversity Report claims that 67% of HR is female, while Vizier shows HR managers are as much as 76% female. If you want to demean men, at least use a seemingly easy job that is actually dominated by men. Like, let's see. Mechanics and electricians? No, that's not it. Carpenters? No, not that either. Metalworking producers? Mobile machine operatives? Forklift drivers, truck drivers, window fabricators, electronic technicians, wall tilers, engineer this, engineer that, chauffeurs and taxi drivers? Nah, those shifts are insane, at least where I'm from. What else is there? Mechanical engineers? Oh, here, I found it. Painters and decorators are apparently majority male. I suppose it could be described as an easier job than a wall tiler or miner, physically speaking, but you still can't use it to make the point she was trying to make. Really, you'd be hard-pressed to find some do-nothing jobs like human resources on the list of jobs dominated by men. Why? Virtually all jobs that maintain everyday infrastructure that the world runs on are done by men.
And look, I'm not saying there's anything inherently degrading about being a mum or making nice meals.
Maybe you aren't saying it specifically, but you are certainly implying it. You and other leftists have conditioned working women to look down to traditional housewives as if they were quite literally worth less than them.
I like cooking elaborate dinners. For that matter, my boyfriend does too.
Bonus points for making her boyfriend look stupid.
But the tradwife trend isn't just a way to talk about the experience of being a woman and doing domestic labour. It's saying that being a woman, or expressing your femininity most fully, means doing all the domestic labour. Men and women are meant to have rigidly distinct roles in the home, in their relationships, and crucially, in economic activity.
Yes, tradwives practice gender roles, so you have yet to show us why it's so bad.
So this isn't just about personal choice or individual preferences, it's advancing a right-wing political ideology and dressing it up as a lifestyle. So why is this important? 3 things. These women are often really young, in their 20s, and they're preaching the values of submitting to a husband to an audience of other young women.
This is what I mean. It's a problem that young women are living traditionally, when they should be girl-bossing and hot girl summering their way to 35 years old, which they will regret when they end up alone with 17 cats.
The tradwife trend doesn't exist in isolation. It's linked to deeply regressive political and social movements such as Christian and white nationalism.
I guess it's not a left-wing video if you don't somehow make it about race.
It's linked to deeply regressive political and social movements such as Christian and white nationalism and anti-feminism.
I would ask her to prove what she's saying, but heck, if I was her, I'd have no idea how to prove it either. The trend is linked to deeply regressive political and social movements such as Christian and white nationalism, and anti-feminism can mean whatever the heck you want it to mean. Are these women anti-feminist? Yeah, obviously. That is the whole point of the trend. However, I am failing to see how that also makes them racist. I guess in the woke world, if you are one ist, that makes you also all the other ists.
And anti-feminism.
Feminism is an ideology which cannot be defended by feminists.
It's also very interesting how she uses Andrew Tate as an example, when Andrew Tate is not even someone who these women would support most of the time. Most of these tradwives you can find on TikTok are traditional Christian women. They would not agree with anything Tate used to say on male promiscuity whatsoever.
It's part of a wider shift of young people being dissatisfied with neoliberalism and wanting social change.
Yes, that is most certainly true. So many people, especially young people, are sick with all the woke Marxist garbage being shoved down their throats.
So, let's talk about the way in which tradwife culture presents the ideal relationship. Men are providers.
It's interesting how there isn't a single example in this video of her talking about anything men do without doing it in a demeaning voice or making quotation mark gestures with her hands.
Which means that only they participate in paid work and make all the financial decisions.
He is responsible for the final say in all of our financial decisions.
And this is presented as a kind of equality. While men and women have separate roles, they are equal in their value. Insisting on the equal value between paid employment and unpaid care work, which, by the way, is a feminist position, hence the Wages for Housework campaign of the 1970s.
Yes, that's how it works, but it's not a kind of equality. It is equality. Having the same moral worth does not also require you to do the exact same things. Let me give you an example. Me and my friend are making birdhouses. I chop down wood and cut it down into planks, while he assembles it into birdhouses and then we sell it and split the revenue. We are doing completely different things, but we are equal in business. In the same way, husband and wife are doing completely different types of work, but they share the revenue, which is the life they live together. Which brings me to the second point. No, this is not unpaid labor. The idea that the housewife's work is unpaid is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. No, if you're a housewife while your husband provides for you, your work is not unpaid. It is very much paid. It is paid in the roof you have above your head, in all the food you eat, all the electricity, water, and other utilities you consume, and it is also paid on all the money you spend on clothes and everything else which your husband has earned. The husband and wife work as a team in this way. He does one thing and she does another, which results in a functioning and, God willing, great life for both them and any children they may have.
Gets twisted into something much more sinister, willingly giving up financial independence. This isn't all soft filters and sourdough inspiration. It wasn't until the 1960s in America and the mid-1970s in the UK that women had the legal right to open their own bank accounts or access credit. Which meant that many women, particularly if they didn't work, were entirely financially dependent on a man.
Yeah, Europeans and Americans were quite behind on that one. But while we are on that point, why is it inherently bad to be dependent on somebody? Specifically, why is it bad to be dependent on a man?
And this dependency didn't create happy marriages. As Betty Friedan found in her 1963 book The Feminine Mystique, middle-class American women who were living the suburban dream of husbands and housewifery were fucking miserable.
You cite the whole book as your source? I mean, that can work in certain situations if you're citing an idea as a whole that gets explored in the book, but it's always better if you cite what you're talking about page by page so we can fact-check you. You have a master's degree, you know that, which means you're being disingenuous on purpose. How exactly did Friedan find this? Ash provides no statistics whatsoever that are supposedly in this book. Or are they even statistics or just anecdotal evidence? I have no idea, I haven't read The Feminine Mystique, and I am not going to, especially since you did not even provide any actual arguments from the book. Instead you basically said, here, look, this book agrees with me. It's an interesting point considering that there is plenty of actual research showing exactly opposite to be the case. Women have actually gotten more miserable and less happy since women's liberation, and the phenomenon is so well known in the social sciences field that it has been dubbed the female happiness paradox. I might do a video on it in the future, but for now I'll link a very well done video by a YouTuber named Aydin Paladin in the description or the pinned comment if you'd like to check it out for yourself. It's a great analysis of the topic.
In the 1950s, the average age of marriage for women was falling, and the number of children they were having was rising.
Excuse me, is getting married and having children bad? What?
In order to roll back on the relative social autonomy of women in the 1930s and 1940s, post-war American culture had begun to relentlessly focus on the idea that fulfillment for middle-class women meant being a housewife. For working-class women, of course, they were just meant to be the middle-class women's nannies, housekeepers, and helpmates. But even with the labour-saving technology of dishwashers, washing machines, and the sweat of women poorer than them, still the suburban wives of America were not satisfied. Frieden identified high rates of depression, dissatisfaction, and dependence on barbiturates.
Again, refer to my point earlier.
Women being forced into a life where they were denied autonomy and the use of all of their mental faculties was decimating their mental health.
Once again, no, women are more unhappy today than ever before. I guess I'll have to show what I mean. Reading from a Berkeley paper, link in the description of course. By most objective measures, the lives of women in the United States have improved over the past 35 years. Yet we show that measures of subjective well-being indicate that women's happiness has declined both absolutely and relative to men. The paradox of women's declining relative well-being is found across various datasets, measures of subjective well-being, and is pervasive across demographic groups and industrialized countries. In 1972, women were happier than men on average, and the median woman was as happy as a man at the 53.3rd percentile in the male distribution. By 2006, however, the median woman's happiness was less than that of a median man in 1972, while the median man in 2006 was slightly happier than his counterpart in 1972. Comparing the 2006 medians with the distribution for men in 1972, we see that the median woman in 2006 is as happy as a man at the 48.8th percentile in the 1972, almost 5 percentage points below her position 34 years prior, while the median man in 2006 is as happy as the man at the 50.7th percentile in 1972. Again, if you'd like to learn more, you should check out Tate's video I mentioned earlier.
And with financial independence limited, or in some places impossible, it was incredibly difficult to get out. Though the Tradwives of 2023 talk about men being in control of the household finances like it's a charitable act. Oh no, my stupid lady brain can't cope with taxes. It's a hugely dangerous thing to do.
Modern feminism is believing that women are girl bosses who are smarter and stronger than men and simultaneously too stupid to know what is best for them if God forbid they decide to stay at home instead of toiling at a job 40 hours per week.
I very much do so ask permission to spend any kind of money, even $1, I will ask.
According to Women's Aid, nearly a third of abuse survivors say that their access to money during the relationship was controlled by the perpetrator.
Not even your statistics support your point. Let's flip it around. 2/3 of abuse victims say they were financially independent. Your own statistics can be used to say that there is a higher chance of a financially independent woman being abused than a financially dependent one.
A quarter report that their partner did not let them have money for essentials during the relationship, and a third have had to give up their home as a result of the abuse or leaving the relationship.
Yes, abuse is terrible, so if you'd like to live traditionally, your best bet isn't to go to a job that makes you miserable. Your best bet is not ignoring red flags when it comes to choosing your husband. There are plenty of abusive men, just like there are plenty of abusive women, so you should choose your husband or wife carefully. You should probably even have him or her vetted by your parents on your own accord, since your parents will likely be way better at spotting red flags than you will be.
I'm not saying that every relationship where men are in charge of the finances is abusive.
You are saying that, let's be real.
Just that giving up your financial autonomy and placing it in the hands of your partner is highly risky if things do indeed go wrong. If you've ever spent time on Tradwife TikTok, you'll notice a certain irony, that despite rejecting modern womanhood, its advocates love nothing more than appropriating the language of feminism in order to advance anti-feminist goals.
I have no idea what even is your point there, to be honest.
Because men and women are so different, and that is okay.
Yes, that is what makes men and women work so well together and has allowed us to build civilization together.
We as women just need to learn that that is okay. Stepping into your feminine side is okay. Being a mother is okay.
Once more, this dresses up being explicitly submissive to your husband as an act of individualist liberation. But the simple truth is that if it were possible for men and women to be socially equal but financially unequal, the Tradwife trend wouldn't be popular with reactionaries and the far right. It's the very fact that it advocates women voluntarily surrendering their autonomy by presenting it as an aspirational lifestyle which makes it so popular with conservatives, misogynists, white nationalists, and religious fundamentalists.
Ah yes, the dreaded far right. Still, I don't see how white nationalism has anything to do with living a traditional life. You know that all cultures have their own version of a traditional life, right?
She was not wife material. I had to I had to chop and screw her mind a little bit. I was playing like operation with her brain.
The Tradwife trend sits in the middle of an online content network, drawing together different subcultures, movements, and interests. Its focus on homemaking connects to other lifestyle content like recipes, interior decor, skincare, soft life, and homesteading, which is like farming but made aesthetic.
Again, please, how are you a white nationalist if you want to stay at home and raise chickens? This is a nitpick, I have to admit, but no, homesteading is not farming made aesthetic. It's living a lifestyle of self-sufficiency by producing as many things by yourself and on your own land as you can, which includes food. Farming is a part of it, but it is not farming.
Its interest in marriage and relationships, obviously, links to dating, psychology, and self-help. And its rigid belief in fixed gender roles, its rejection of feminism and liberal, left-wing or progressive values, and its emphasis on Christianity means that it has lent a feminine veneer to conservative far-right and white nationalist ideologies.
You essentially just said it's anti-feminist, meaning it doesn't agree with me, meaning that it's far-right. I mean, is anything even slightly to the right of you far-right now? I wouldn't be surprised if you said yes.
One thing that comes up again and again is this idea of women submitting to their husbands as a form of submission to God.
Wives, respect your husbands. It's biblical. It's in the Bible.
You treat your husband as the head of the household and obey him. It's a sacrifice, but it is a sacrifice well worth it.
And this is meant to be a reciprocal relationship. You, as a woman, don't have to feel degraded by submitting to your husband, because the premise is that his religious beliefs stop him from behaving badly.
You want your wife to follow you? Be a man and follow Jesus and give her a reason to.
If only we had any history of religious men wielding their power to abuse those more vulnerable than them.
Yes, you described it pretty well. It is in the Bible and those are Christian teachings. I don't think Jesus, peace be upon him, would be a feminist. Ephesians 5 verse 22 to 23 says, "Wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as unto the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, and he is the savior of the body." Now, what is extremely interesting to me is how you attack Christianity for being anti-feminist, but you do not hold the same scrutiny against your own religion. Ash is Muslim, and Islam teaches similar family values to Christianity. There are far more similarities than there are differences. For example, in Surah An-Nisa 3:34, it says, "Men are the caretakers of women, as men have been provisioned by Allah over women and tasked with supporting them financially." Okay, seems like it describes the situation we are talking about. An authentic hadith, which for my Christian viewers, hadiths are sayings or practices of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the reference here is Sahih Ibn Hibban 4163. The Messenger of Allah, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "If a woman prays her 5 prayers, fasts her month of Ramadan, guards her chastity, and obeys her husband, she will enter paradise from any gate she wishes." So, Ash, why the double standard? Both religions are teaching the same thing in principle.
Like with the example of finances, the idea of submission is that by giving up her independence, autonomy, and power, a woman will be taken care of by a good and godly man. She serves him, he serves Christ, but only one person is scrubbing out the toilet.
And only one person is putting his hands down sewage pipes to fix the said toilet when it breaks. Only one person is going to deal with an obnoxious boss on a daily basis, and only one person is lifting the heavy furniture, and so on. See how pointing out a task that only one person tends to do doesn't actually mean anything.
But the influence of fundamentalist religion extends far beyond whatever private arrangements a couple may have as part of a household. Tradwife culture is dominated by aggressively anti-abortion, anti-birth control, and anti-sex views.
Wow. It is truly a shock that religious women are religious, and they are actually standing by what they believe in. How dare they?
Using the language and aesthetics of wellness influencers, Tradwife religious and conservative advocates have taken to TikTok in order to push disinformation about birth control. This can range from falsely calling the pill a carcinogenic to hyping out the rhythm or pull-out methods on social media. Just to be clear, these are less forms of contraception than they are playing pregnancy roulette.
All in black.
As well as celebrating the overturn of Roe versus Wade, some tradwives have allied themselves with the conservative right by taking aggressively transphobic stances, contrasting trans, queer, and even just feminist women to their authentic, natural, and politically reactionary model of femininity.
Wow, it is truly a shock that religious women are religious, and they are actually standing by what they believe in. How dare they?
There's a conspiratorial edge to some of the big tradwife social media accounts, from pushing anti-vax and anti-mask content, to claiming that feminism and LGBT rights movements are part of a depopulation agenda.
As far as I see, leftists are the only ones who push the propaganda that the world has too many people in it, even though it has been disproven on multiple occasions years ago, and even though the world is likely heading towards a demographic collapse. So are they really wrong when they say this?
There's an overlap, therefore, between the tradwife trend and white nationalism. This overlap can be implicit, subtle, and unconscious, taking place through aesthetics. This might be using...
I had to stop it here. This picture right here in Ash's video describes feminism perfectly.
Adverts of white nuclear families from the 1950s to stand in for the universal ideal marriage, or contrasting the ideal tradwife to the stereotypical boss bitch, who's always associated with hip-hop culture and almost always black. This reinforces the idea that the ideal, most elegant, and most desirable model of femininity is white European. And women of colour are less feminine, more aggressive, and more in need of civilizing. But the connections can also be more explicit. One mumfluencer, called Wife with a Purpose, issued a white baby challenge, calling on women to have as many white babies as possible. This is an idea central to neo-Nazism. Its adherents justify their violent and hateful ideologies by talking about the need to secure a future for white children, and making sure that the beauty of the white Aryan woman, their words, does not perish from the earth.
Yes, white Aryan women. Do you know what Aryan means, Ash? You either know and are disingenuous about it, or you don't know and thus have no idea what you're talking about. The Aryan race in the context of Nazism are the Nordic people of Germany and Scandinavia. It does not mean white people. In fact, to the Nazis, the Slavic peoples, such as the Russians, Ukrainians, Poles, Serbs, etc., were undesirables and were destined to the concentration camps and forced labor until they were to be replaced by the superior Germans. You know what the interesting thing is? In case you're a bit weak on your geography, Slavs are as white as milk. They are people from Eastern Europe. Racism comes in all shapes and sizes, and Nazism is a very specific form of racism. Someone making a seemingly racist statement does not automatically mean they are a Nazi. Because again, not everything is Nazism. Nazism or National Socialism is a very specific ideology. I know you are trying to generalize and call traditional women every buzzword you can think of to discredit them and automatically make your audience hate them because they hear the words like misogynistic, racist, Nazi or whatnot, but at least understand the terms that you're using. I swear these people just spit out word salads hoping to sound smart enough that nobody stops to think about and check what they're actually saying.
Tradwives become an important component of the Great Replacement myth, pushed by white nationalists. If modernity is defined by diversity, both of lifestyles and of ethnicity, then the tradwife marks the return to an era of social and racial conformity. Women with choices and agency aren't usually so keen on submitting themselves to a life of reproductive captivity in the interests of furthering racism.
Reproductive captivity in interests of furthering racism. What? Do you see how hard she's trying to frame this as if these women are chained up in the kitchen and told to grill chicken breasts until they die? And another point to this, why does she seem to think that housewives only exist among white people? I'm pretty sure that the modern working woman became a thing among white people.
Hence, tradwives. White nationalism, anti-choice ideology, and religious fundamentalism aside, if you want to know with certainty whether the tradwife trend is an empowering reclamation of domestic labour or just regular old sexism made palatable with TikTok aesthetics, just look at the kind of men who approve of it.
I don't like girls who are over sociable. I don't like girls who know lots of people. I don't like girls who are always out.
As someone who, is totally down with looking at girls half naked on Instagram, it's fucking great, but...
Except that Andrew Tate isn't a traditionalist and is not much liked among traditionalists. He even ran a camgirl business, which is something I guarantee you every single tradwife would be against. He did become a Muslim recently, and with that seems to have denounced many of his past takes. However, I scarcely see his clips circling around anymore, so I am not sure what his beliefs about it are now, but the point is that most people are aware of him from his older clips, and tradwives would definitely disagree with those. In your clip you just showed to try to prove the point that Adam supports tradwives, he said he is, quote, totally down to look at half-naked girls on Instagram. Does that sound traditional or even something tradwives would approve of? Do you even know which group of people you are talking about?
Here are two men, both accused of sex crimes by the way, who have made money by sexualizing women.
Yes, they have made money from that, which is why traditionalists don't really vibe with them.
They've crafted their professional personas around having sex with lots of different women, but here they are celebrating tradwives and denigrating modern women.
In the clips you showed, they literally aren't. Tate says he likes quiet girls and Adam says he likes half-naked girls on Instagram.
And that isn't because they want to treat women as a whole better, but because it serves as an excuse to treat lots of women much worse because they're not the good girls or whatever. That's not about embracing tradition, respect, and dignity.
Yes, exactly, Ash. You get it. That's the criticism that traditionalists have against Andrew Tate. I still don't get why you're trying to lump in these guys with tradwives. Or no, I do know why. Because you are trying to create associations among your audience between the people they already hate, such as Andrew Tate, with this new group of people who you want them to hate.
That's just old-fashioned misogyny. Okay, so while I think all these things explain the political impact of the tradwife trend, they don't explain why it's so appealing in the first place.
Let me help you. It's so appealing because tradwives are the opposite of everything that mainstream liberalism is teaching and trying to drill into the heads of young girls, and unlike liberalism, isn't self-destructive and allows women to find happiness in their femininity and the complementary relationship between men and women. But you are also right when you say,
the answer is simple. Modern life, in many ways, sucks. It's hard to make the case in an era of low wages, high anxiety, precarious work, and extortionate rents that women are liberated just through entering the labour market. Everyone knows by now that leaning in alone won't make you a girl boss. The relative economic security of previous decades, a job for life, housing you could afford, pensions, and a debt-free life has been obliterated in the slash and burn of neoliberalism.
Spot on. Except you don't acknowledge that the principles and ideas these tradwives are rejecting are the same ones that led society into such a sad state that it is in today.
If you're under 45 or you don't own a house, the future can feel fucking bleak. You add to that the experiences that many people have dating, like being ghosted or being treated like you're disposable. It's no wonder that people feel dissatisfied, intensely so, with the status quo. There is a longing for care, for order, for security and certainty. And the fantasy being sold by tradwives is that all those things are in reach for women.
Really? Tradwives are claiming that women can have it all? How ironic coming from the side whose advice to young women is to focus on your career and your promiscuity, and maybe someday down the line when you're 35 you can start to think about maybe settling down, and don't worry, of course you have time. It's not like you have a biological clock or anything.
If only we give up our autonomy and return to the gender roles of an imagined and idealized past. And that's the thing. The lifestyle being sold is a fantasy.
I love it when communists claim that something is a fantasy. She can't even see the irony. And yes, she is a communist, she said it herself.
Because I'm literally a communist.
It's fictitious. As my colleague Moya Lothian-McLean has argued, tradwife TikTok doesn't really show images of domestic labour. It depicts domestic leisure.
Personally, I believe I'm not meant to work. I'm meant to do this all day.
It's like an extended session of playing dress up. You get to glide around wearing floaty skirts and dresses, organising your snack cupboard and baking bread.
Of course it does. No matter who you are, if you're putting your life on the internet, you probably put the best parts of it on there. I don't see how that is unusual.
And look, that's my idea of a nice day too. Who doesn't like an opportunity to feel gorgeous and eat nice things?
So, are you jealous of them perhaps? You keep claiming that being a housewife is idealized and a complete fantasy, yet you haven't explained how. What part of being a housewife is a fantasy, provided your husband makes enough to support you both? As far as I know, none of these women claim that they don't do anything. They have their duties and their husbands have theirs.
This idealized portrayal of domestic labor chimes with a wider social media trend of soft life, a lifestyle of skincare and sourdough, taking the path of least resistance and doing so aesthetically. As work has become less rewarding, literally, the worker's share is declining relative to asset wealth, people seek comfort in images of serenity, relaxation, quiet, and nourishment. What influencers do, whether they're tradwives or Instagram babes, is tap into that human desire for respite and channel it into something else. So for your typical wellness influencer, that'll be woo-flavoured consumerism. And for tradwives, it's an ideological insistence that if women make themselves dependent on men, they can find the ease and fulfillment they've been longing for. So, what to do about it? I think it means generating a different vision of fulfillment, happiness, emotional nourishment, and family life.
Oh, you mean like how for decades feminism has been telling women that working 9 to 5 will make them happy and instead has made them completely miserable? Haven't you realized that this trend is a reaction to feminism?
Which isn't predicated on the patriarchal domination of women. Work won't set women free, and neither will being ruled by men. It's freedom, equality, and reciprocal care that will.
What? Freedom, equality, and reciprocal care mean absolutely nothing at all. You have not offered any solutions whatsoever, not even suggestions, nothing. I was surprised how after all of this blabbering and finding all these supposed problems with Tradwives, she has absolutely no solutions to this quote-unquote problem. But then I realized that, as a communist, of course she has no solutions to anything. Communism is the same, selling you the dream of a workers' utopia but without any of the actual steps to get there. Instead just complaining about the other side over and over again onto infinity. And with that being said, thank you for watching, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and may God bless you all.
My mother told me someday I will buy a galley with good oars, sail to distant shores, stand up on the prow, noble bark I steer, steady course to the haven, hew many foemen,